And I started looking around. The first thing I did is I looked around. I said, well, I want to be free. Because if I can't be crazy, why be in jail? But I looked at the whites, the blacks, the Spanish, the church guys, the Muslims, the kitchen workers, the basketball players, the chess players, every group all went home and came back. So I said, free doesn't work for anybody. So I switched my goal to successful. I said, successful people don't come here.
That's an important distinction.
I'll become successful and I won't have to come back.
So you have a pretty cool story, and I want can we just summarize that a little bit? And I know you just did a keynote, so I don't want you to have to do the whole keynote kind of thing. But just can you tell people a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and what you're doing now, and then we'll go into the rest of it.
The summarized version of my life: grew up in the inner city of Boston. Mom went through domestic violence, kicked dad out. Went through the busing crisis of Boston. I used to get stoned on buses, throwing rocks at, names. Came through that, realized middle school, didn't do well, didn't fit in, drifted to the streets. I'm the classic single mom, 6 kids. I'm the one who fell through the cracks. I wind up and get in trouble. I wind up in court. I get sentenced to a bunch of time and sent to a maximum security penitentiary at 18. I get there, I'm super nervous, and the gang recruits me. And they said, I think it's best that you be with us. It was either kind of be with the gang or be on my own. And being on your own in the maximum security penitentiary at 18 isn't a good idea. If anybody should ever find themselves there. And I hung out with the gang for 6 years. And I raised my status in the gang. I became the 3rd ranking gang member in the state through attrition and a lot of work. And I thought I was winning. I thought I had achieved my dream of being one of the top gang leaders in the state. And I realized I was just the king of nowhere. I had an epiphany. I turned my life around. I wanted to go to home and be successful. So I picked a school called Harvard University as my destination. You always need a destination point.
Yeah.
Taught myself to read, got my GED, went to counseling because I had a slight anger management problem. I just kept working every day. Taught myself the law, reversed the case on appeal. It took 8 years of working 20 hours a day to get myself out of prison. And I got out in 1999, roughly 19 and a half years ago. I've worked at Harvard Law School. I've worked at the White House. I've worked at London Business School. I've worked with YPO. I worked with EO. I worked with Genius Network. I'm now here at War Room. I've worked with COO Alliance. I've worked with so many companies I can't keep track of because I made up my mind to be successful and I wasn't going to stop.
That's pretty awesome. That's a pretty great
That's
story.
the abbreviated version.
Right. So let's go back because I want to look at a little bit of like kind of the mental toughness thing. So when you were faced with the decision going in, what would you say your attitude was at the time that you went in? You're 18 years old. You've gone through the judicial process, which is no fun thing to do. And now you're kind of in a place that I assume you don't really know much about, right?
I knew 100% of nothing about maximum security prison. It's not something you can read in a book or see on TV.
Right.
You know it when you get there. When I got there, the thing that I knew was I was scared to death and I knew nothing.
Right. And so was it put to you kind of like an ultimatum, join us or...
the gang part.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they didn't give me like the ultimate ultimatum. They gave me an option, actually. I went down to the caseworker's office and she gave me a handbook about all the classes I could take, the college classes, the high school classes, the HVAC, the plumbing, the welding, and culinary, all the stuff that I could do while I was in jail. And I was excited. I called my mom and said, Mom, I can do all this wonderful stuff while I'm in jail and make myself better. Then the gang came to me and said, Andre, you're from our neighborhood and we love you. You got 2 choices. You can go with what that lady said in that handbook. And then they pointed out the Aryan gang. He said, see those guys over there? They want to kill you because you're black. And when they come running in yourself with knives, you think that caseworker is going to come help you. They point out the Latino gang. They said, they want to kill you because you're black. And when they come running in yourself with knives, is that lady from the unit team going to help you? Then they show me the other black gang. They say, those guys want to kill you because you're black and you're from the other side of town. And when they come running in your cell, is that lady going to come help you?
You're like, daggone it.
They said, you got a choice.
Yeah.
You can go with that lady in that handbook or you can come with us. We'll protect you from them.
Right.
I don't know what she's going to do.
Right.
And it was a real simple choice. Get stabbed by 3 different groups multiple times or join a gang.
And you chose joining the gang.
I chose joining the gang. Yes.
That's why you're here. So
door 1.
So yeah, I'll take door number 1, please. So you went through, and rose up to be number 3 in the gang, and felt like you were winning until you felt that you weren't.
I felt that I was winning because in America, as a black man, you gauge yourself by being tough.
Mm-hmm.
And the tough guys where I come from don't go to church.
Mm-hmm.
They don't go to work. They don't go to any place else. They go to prison. They go to the street and they go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
The toughest black men that I know are all in prison.
Okay.
And when I went to prison, that's what I measured myself against. These are the toughest guys in the state. And I wanted to know, where do I measure up? Am I tough like them? And they're from all over the place, and I wanted to measure myself against them. So I was doing the fighting and the stabbing and all the wonderful stuff you do in prison,
right?
And earning my mythical pound for pound champion status, or pound for pound best. And I got to be number 3 in the state for being, hey, that guy's really, really, really tough.
Right.
And I thought I was winning. I got respect. I got to sell drugs. I got to extort people. I mean, all the stuff that comes with being one of the toughest guys, the fringe benefits.
So what happened that caused you to suddenly decide you wanted to do something different?
I was actually in segregation or solitary confinement for trying to kill 8 people. And while I was in there, I'm just laying back laughing like, hey, this is what I do. I had an opportunity, a situation arose where some friends of mine had gotten stabbed. And my response was retaliate against their friends. Mm-hmm. And before I could do it, God spoke to me. And God said, Andre, don't do this. Life choice. And I got mad that God spoke to me because I'm not a religious guy and I actually don't like church people. Mm-hmm. I literally used to beat up church people. Mm-hmm. If you came within 50 feet of me with a cross on, saying hallelujah, or quoting any scripture, you most likely would get beaten. Because I had a lot of problems with what church people did to my mom when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was not a good experience for me. Mm-hmm. Maybe she thought it was fun or whatever, but I really did not like the relationships that happened between her and people at the church. I'll leave it there. And I was too small to intervene at the time. When I finally realized what was going on, I wasn't big enough to go hurt those people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now that I'm big enough, I always had this thing about not liking church people because of the situation with my mom. Mm-hmm. So when they came around me in jail, all the years of not being able to defend her or defend my anger would come out of me. Mm-hmm. And that's why I didn't like them. So when God spoke to me, I got mad. I said, you need to go see your people because all of my life you've not been there. When my mother used to get beat up, you never showed up.
Right. When
they threw rocks and names at me, you didn't show up. When my father walked out, you didn't show up. When my sister became an addict and a prostitute, you didn't show up.
Right.
When I was poor and had to eat free lunch every day, you didn't show up. And I just went down the list. My mom was dating people in the church and they were married and we were little bastard kids, you didn't show up. All the shame and embarrassment I went through my life, you didn't show up.
Right.
I don't need you now.
Right.
I run this place. And when I commit this act of violence, I will be the number 1 guy in this whole entire system. I would have went from the last to the first without you.
Right.
And he said it again. Don't do this, life choice. We argued. He won. And if anybody ever tell you to argue with God, that's fine. But if they tell you they won the argument, that's a problem because they're crazy.
Didn't work out.
If they won the argument, they're on heavy medication.
Right.
So I go back to my cell. I said, if I can't be a psychopath, why be in jail? And I started looking around. The first thing I did is I looked around. I said, well, I want to be free. Because if I can't be crazy, why be in jail? But I looked at the whites, the blacks, the Spanish, the church guys, the Muslims, the kitchen workers, the basketball players, the chess players, every group all went home and came back. So I said, free doesn't work for anybody. So I switched my goal to successful. I said, successful people don't come here.
That's an important distinction.
I'll become successful and I won't have to come back. And I said, I'll go to Harvard, I'll be successful. And that became my focus. And everybody around me, my friends, the gang, my mom, my dad, all thought I was crazy. How do I go from being an illiterate gang member locked in the basement, selling drugs in jail, to wanting to go to Harvard University? But I believed it. They didn't. And they all try to talk me out of it for their own reasons. But I wouldn't shake this time. I said, no, this is something that I want to do and I'm going to stick to it. And I kind of distanced myself from the gang. You don't really quit the gang. I distanced myself from the gang. I stopped with the day-to-day operations and I started going to school every day. I started going to programs every day. And I spent my time doing constructive, positive things that build me and to build the person that I needed to be to get into Harvard. Because the person that I was, when I had the thought, would not be accepted.
Okay.
I needed to build that person. And that's what I began to do. And over the next 8 years, I built that person.